Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are hitting a really critical milestone. Now, for all the infrastructure and security architects joining us, I know you already have a solid handle on IPv4, and you're likely right in the thick of your organization's migration to IPv6. Well, that's exactly why you're here, for Part 8 of our 10-part tutorial series, IPv4 and IPv6 Transition Technologies, Architecture, Security, and Firewall Design. This is all developed by Virtualization Options LLC, which is a fantastic Colorado-based technology research, education, and advisory organization. Up to this point in the series, we've walked through the transition imperative, dual stack, tunneling, and translation. But today we are focusing squarely on Chapter 8 of our source material, which is all about the massive paradigm shift required for IPv6 firewall design. We are literally going to rebuild your perimeter defense approach from the ground up.
All right, let's quickly look at our agenda for today. We'll start with the copy-paste trap, then move into designing without NAT, tackle the address multiplicity challenge, explore securing translation mechanisms, and finally wrap up with essential IPv6 security RFCs. Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, the copy-paste trap. I want to start with a quote straight from our source material. Listen to this. IPv6 firewall design requires explicit policy construction from first principles. IPv4 rule sets do not transfer. If you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer today, please let it be this one concept. Relying on your legacy IPv4 logic is a massive, critical vulnerability. You really can't just take your old rules, map them to new formats, and call it a day. Doing that will leave your network dangerously exposed.
Moving right along to Section 2, designing without NAT.
So, for decades, our IPv4 comfort zone relied heavily on network address translation, or NAT, to act as this de facto security boundary. It was like a warm blanket. It hid our internal topologies and basically guaranteed a single IP per host. Well, the IPv6 reality is a totally different ballgame. IPv6 is typically deployed without NAT at all, which means every single host gets a globally routable address, or GUA. Without NAT there to obscure your internal structure, explicit policy enforcement becomes an absolute non-negotiable requirement to block any inbound traffic that you don't explicitly want.
Which brings us to the crucial point of how we handle outbound traffic, specifically egress anti-spoofing. You absolutely must mirror your IPv4 anti-spoofing rules. Applying BCP38 principles to IPv6 means you drop any packet leaving an interface if its source address doesn't belong to that interface's assigned prefix. Simple enough, right? But here's the catch. Because of stateless address auto-configuration, SLAC, and the privacy addresses it spins up, you can't just permit a single host IP anymore. It doesn't work. In SLAC environments, you have to configure your firewall to permit the entire assigned /64 prefix.
All right, Section 3, the address multiplicity challenge.
We have officially shattered the traditional one host, one IP model. It's totally gone. A single IPv6 host usually holds multiple IP addresses, all at the exact same time. Think about it. You've got a link local address sitting in the fee80/10 range. You've got a globally unique address from SLAC or DHCPv6. You might even have a unique local address in the FC00/7 range, plus one or more privacy or temporary addresses. Your firewall rules have to account for every single one of these address types, all living on just one interface.
So, what does this actually mean in practice? Let's talk about RFC 6724. This is the standard that dictates exactly which of those many addresses a host will use for outbound connections. And why should a security architect care about this? Well, if you only lock down the primary GUA in your firewall rules, RFC 6724 might just decide the host should use a temporary privacy address to connect to the internet. If your rules don't explicitly cover that temporary address, your perimeter was just completely bypassed. No bueno.
And that leads us to a really massive real-world dilemma. Under RFC 8981, privacy extensions generate random interface IDs that rotate periodically, usually every 24 hours. So, if an IP address is changing every single day, how on earth do you correlate your firewall logs to a specific host? The source address is literally changing between sessions. This turns incident response into a forensics nightmare, and it makes compliance auditing incredibly complicated because tying malicious activity back to one specific machine suddenly requires pulling in totally separate, complex data sets.
Fortunately, our source material outlines a really concrete mitigation strategy for this headache. For managed enterprise environments that absolutely demand strict auditing controls, the solution is simple. Deploy DHCPv6 for stateful address assignment. By doing this, you essentially override the chaos of SLAC privacy extensions. You get your address predictability back, which means your Security Operations Center can actually do reliable,
accurate log correlation again. Next up, Section 4, Securing Translation Mechanisms.
Every single translation mechanism introduces its own unique attack surface, so you need very exact security mechanisms to protect them from things like state exhaustion and spoofing. Here is your rapid-fire mitigation checklist. Ready? First, if you're using NAT64 and DNS64, validate DNSSEC to secure the A records before synthesis. Second, you've got to rate limit your NAT64 state creation per source IPv6 address. Otherwise, an attacker is going to exhaust your state table in no time. Third, if MAP-T is running, enforce hard policy by validating the source address and port right at the border relay. And finally, for DS Lite, authenticate those B4 elements via DHCPv6 so you can stop spoofing attacks against your AFTR NAT mappings dead in their tracks.
And finally, Section 5, Essential IPv6 Security RFCS. Think of these standards as your architectural blueprint. As an architect, these are the exact documents you'll use to build out your new perimeter policies. RFC 4890 is super critical because it tells you how to filter ICMPv6 messages. Remember, you literally cannot just block all ICMP anymore or the whole protocol breaks down. Then there's RFC 6105, which is your standard for IPv6 router advertisement guard. RFC 7123 details the security implications on IPv4 networks. RFC 9109 is all about operational security considerations. And lastly, RFC 9313 gives you a really comprehensive breakdown of the pros and cons of these transition technologies. Seriously, keep this list handy. It is your ultimate reference guide.
As we wrap up Part 8 of this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative question. We've laid out the first principles today. We've tackled the removal of NAT, we've navigated address multiplicity, and we've locked down translation security. So your new perimeter architecture is beautifully designed. But is your operations team actually ready to monitor it? Can your SOC successfully correlate logs across those rotating privacy extensions? Do they even know how to spot a state exhaustion attack hitting your NAT64 gateway? Engineering the design is truly only half the battle. Active daily network defense is the other half. Think about that as you prepare your teams for the shift. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you right back here for the next part of the series.